All right, Shalom. First and foremost, I want to start this lesson by giving all praises, glory, and honor unto Yahweh Bahasham, Yahweh Shai Bahasham Rachakudash, double honors to the elders and apostles of Great Millstone who taught us all this truth and who also rule and teach well. And Shalom to all the Achim in this truth and sincerity, starting with the 144,000 and the 1/3 of the nation of Israel, which we are fighting to be a part of. This is your brother Chabar Yakal coming back, Lord willing, with another quick and edifying lesson. And basically, I'm going to do this lesson on this clip that I saw the other day. I had reposted it on Threads, you know. But basically, you can see the caption, you know. It says she thought it was just C19. I'm gonna just say it like that. Until the folks showed up. I'm gonna say it like that too. A Florida woman says she was told there was a strain never seen before, and I'm not gonna play it just because of what she's saying. She says certain, you know, buzzwords that might get the video taken down. I'm not sure. I really want to play what she's saying, but I don't know. It's too risky, you know. But basically, this lady is basically going through it. You know, she says she has pneumonia. She's hooked up to like oxygen. She said they got her on all kind of drugs. I forget what else she said. Like I said, I wish I could play it, but I don't want them to take down the video. But basically, I looked it up, and she said she was basically patient zero. Like, so, you know, it might be another epidemic. You know, we'll see. I mean, the first one was a trial run. All right, and with those Frankenstein, you know, miles. Like the Apostle Tahar says, Mepstein miles. You know, with that information coming out, kill to the gates. He was on that list, and a lot of information came out that, you know, it really was planned. It really was a planned, you know, demic. And and we were right, you know, of course, beginning with our elders and apostles on down, the prophets of Yahweh, which is the Most High God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Bahasham, which is in the name Yahweh Shai, which is the only begotten Son, our Lord and Savior, who the world ignorantly calls Jesus Christ. His true name is Yahweh Shai, which means he saves, he delivers. And he's a so-called black man with white woolly hair, all right, very dark-skinned man. And he's coming back with the army of angels and what the world ignorantly calls the UFOs. Okay. But, you know, the prophets of Yahweh Bashem Yahweh Shai were right, and you people were wrong. Okay, hold up. Yeah, here's what I want right here. So I looked this up because after I watched that video, you know, I was just curious to see if there was any, you know, news, and a matter of fact, if there's any articles, and you know, ChatGPT isn't always gonna give you the real, so it's not always gonna give you the, you know, the straight up and down information. You know, you really gotta like fight ChatGPT to really give you the 100% truth, and even then, it probably won't give you, but it gives you good information though sometimes. But I believe that lady. I believe what she said. That's something new. You know, she was crying. You know, she started cursing out, you know, the so-called white man. You know, but I bet she loved him before that happened to her. You know, she said they trying to kill us. You know, as in so-called, blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, which are the true biblical Israelites, because we have an enemy. All right, Psalms 83 tells you all the enemies of the nation of Israel. Again, you so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans, and their ultimate goal, beginning with Esau, Edom, all right, which is the so-called white race. But not all white people are Edomites. I got to throw that in there. And then, the Moabites, so-called Chinese. Again, we got people scattered looking like these people, but overall, they're elites. And overall, those people, they're our enemies. All right. But I have to throw balance in there because you do have Israelites scattered amongst all these heathen nations outside of the nation of Israel. But Psalms 83 tells you about the Edomites, the Moabites, the Ishmaelites, so-called Arabs, all right, so on and so forth. How, basically all these nations have come together that the name of Israel may be no more of remembrance. And part of that, like I mentioned, kill to the gates. That whole, bringing the population down under 500 million. They're really trying to take out, the Israelites. Okay, they're doing everything in their power to do away with the Israelites, but it's not possible because the scripture tells you, matter of fact, let me get it real quick. That's why these plagues, that's why, Yahweh Bahashim Yahushai put the spirit on this devil, Esau, Edom, to bring these plagues, all right, these plagues that was man-made. Excuse me. Because they're trying to destroy the Israelites. Man, what was I about to get? I kind of just slipped my mind. Damn, it slipped my mind. Salakia. Anyway, I'm gonna read this. It says, here's the latest. It says, yes, C19 subvariants have been circulating in Florida and the broader U.S. They are not entirely new virus. These they're evolving subvariants of the existing, Mars. You could read it. What circulating health authorities around the world, including in the U.S., have been tracking. I'm gonna just say Omi lineage subvariants, meaning versions of the original C19, that have, mutated slightly over time. And they're acting like this is just some natural, this is just some natural occurring thing. When, like I said, kill to the gates, and some other devils that they actually, patented, these plagues, So these aren't just some naturally occurring things, all right? They were designed, all right? The man of sin, designed these things. But ultimately it was Yahweh Bashim Al-Shai, and I'm gonna get to that when I bring out the scriptures. He controls the right hand and the left hand, and he created Esau to be his sword, all right? Psalm 17 tells you that. And it's not just a physical sword, all right? There's many components to that blessing that Esau received in Genesis, I want to say 37. If I'm not mistaken, Salaki, if I'm, but I believe that's it. Hold on, let me get it real quick. I believe it's Genesis 37. Let me see. Hold on, no, that's not it. Genesis 27. Where Isaac, who was the father of Jacob and Esau, which Jacob is you so-called blacks, Hispanics, Native Americans. He's our forefather. And Esau is the forefather of you so-called white people, the Edomites. All right, from you small hats, to the regular, degular, everyday, so-called white man. All right, Esau is the forefather of the so-called white race, the Edomites. I'm gonna skip down to where Esau got his blessing. All right, verse 39. It says, And Isaac his father answered and said unto him, Behold, thy dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth and of the dew of heaven. You know, a Mepstein is an example of that. What so-called black, Hispanic, or Native American owns their own island. And he's a low-level devil, all right? Which is crazy, you know, as wicked as he is, he's really just a scapegoat anyway. But he owned an island. what so-called black, Hispanic, or Native American owns an island? Their dwelling shall be the fatness of the earth. That's nothing. That island is like an apartment to the elites. You know, that's like a little apartment. You know, these devils own countries, all right? So that's the fatness of the earth, meaning that they got the best of everything. That's a part of their blessing. That's how you know that Esau is ruling right now. And it is the so-called white man because, you know, yeah, the Arabs are rich, but do they own the whole world? All right. Do the Arabs have central banks in every, you know, country? Do the Arabs, you know, have island, you know, well, they probably do have private islands, you know, because they're in bed with Esau, Edom. All right. Those UAE countries, you know, they're in bed with Esau, Edom, so they do have they do share, you know, a lot of they basically share, you know, in Esau's blessing. But I'm talking about the top, you know, banking family, the Rothschilds, you know, the Rockefellers. Okay, they own countries. That's a whole different level. You know, they control, you know, economies. They control governments. They start wars. That's a whole different level. All right, that's the fatness of the earth. It says, and of the dew of heaven from above. And they even have, you know, a DEW, you know, direct energy weapons from above. All right. That's a part of this right here, verse 40. It says, and by thy sword shalt thou live. And like I said, that's not just an actual sword. There's a lot of components to that. All right. There's a whole lot of components to that. You know, their media. Okay. These plagues that they created, like C-19. All right, propaganda. There's a whole lot that goes into that sword. It's not just, you know, an actual weapon, and it's not just, you know, guns either. I just mentioned the dew, you know, DEWs. That's a whole different. That's a whole different caliber of sword. And then of course the pinnacle of their sword, you know, the ICBMs. All right, which is going to be their own destruction. The Lord put the spirit on them. Isaiah. What's that, 45? If I'm not mistaken, it's in Isaiah where it says, you know, he created the smith, which is the scientist, you know, that blew off the coal and the fire and created an instrument that's talking about, you know, the nuclear missiles. All right. But it says, by thy sword shalt thou live. That's why this devil, it's like, it's not in the nature of Esau to be peaceful. All right. They always cause some type of trouble. They always cause some type of, you know, you're just chilling and they just, you know, start messing with you. They can't leave people alone. All right. And that's on a small scale all the way up to a huge scale. Like I mentioned, the international bankers, all right, Rothschilds, Rockefellers, and, you know, Oppenheimers, they're in every country. They got their hands on in everything. They can't. Habakkuk, the second chapter, you know, they're as hell and cannot be satisfied. Or they're as death and cannot be satisfied. It says, and shalt serve thy brother. You know, during the dark ages, they served, you know, so-called blacks in, you know, in Europe, because so-called black people ruled Europe, which they're the Israelites. All right, the Moors are Israelites. All right, the Byzantine Empire, the Holy Roman Empire, those are all Israelites. All right, they ruled France, they ruled Great Britain. You know, Jake ruled all those lands. And then during that time, you had the wild men of Europe, which were basically cavemen, savages. They try to tell you cavemen were like 3000 BC or some crazy. No, that was during the Dark Ages. That wasn't even that long ago. All right. Shit. And they're still cavemen, It's just most of them clean themselves up, Most of them. All right. But, and it shall come to pass when thou shalt have the dominion that thou shalt break his yoke from off thy neck. And that's right now. And Esau hated Jacob because of the blessing wherewith his father blessed him. And Esau said in his heart and his mind, the days of mourning for my father are at hand. Then will I slay my brother Jacob. And that's why Esau Edom has all these plagues. That's why they have all, like I mentioned, propaganda. They set up all these, puppets. All these streamers, these so-called celebrities, doing all kind of wickedness and promoting it to Jake. And people are waking up to it. You look on Instagram, you see a lot of these dumbass rappers, and people will straight up say, the C to the A to the I. I mean, the C to the I to the A, set this guy up. They straight up be calling it out now, because that witchcraft is waking up. This devil be planting, so-called rappers, promoting, killing each other, promoting drugs, That's all a part of their hatred for Esau. They give a nigga a couple dollars, to sell out, and even Israelites, they even, there's even so-called Israelite leaders that took the bag and they're doing the same thing. But that all goes back to the hatred that Esau has for Jacob. All right, to destroy. But they're not going to destroy the elect, though. So everything they're doing is in vain. They're just destroying the 2/3, which the Lord wanted them destroyed anyway. And that's why Psalm 17, that tells you, deliver me from the wicked, which is Esau Edom, which is thy sword. But the 2/3 won't be delivered from the wicked, which is his sword. The Lord's using Esau as a whipping stick to take out the 2/3. Jacob's trouble is to get rid of the 2/3. All right, that's not for us. Excuse me. But that was it on that. Let's get back to this. Read a little bit more on that. I mean, that's pretty much it, Basically, it's back, all right? And it might come back in a big way. One of the elites said, never, or I think it was Winston Churchill, but he said, never let a good crisis go to waste. I forget who exactly. One of those devils said that. So they might use this again, The first one was a trial run. All right, the first pandemic was a trial run. But it says what this means for the public. These newer subvariants do spread more easily than older ones, because they learned from the trial run. They improved it. They tweaked it. He created the Smith. Now, of course, that's talking about the missiles, but I'm using that. The Smith is a scientist, There's a lot of instruments of death that the Lord gave Esau Edom, and this is one of them. However, there's no strong evidence that they can cause more severe disease than, skip down, vaxes and recommended boosters remain. And it's like, bro, all type of information came out showing that was deadly, that was, terrible for your health, all right? And chat, that's why I told you about ChatGPT. It'd be saying some bullshit. It'd be saying some politically correct bullshit. You gotta fight it to tell you, the truth. Bottom line, there isn't a new brand, which it's like you contradicted yourself. You see? Look at this. There's newer. So there isn't a brand new. I mean, I guess I get what it's saying. They built upon what they already had, from the first pandemic, first planned, demic. Strain unique to Florida right now, but evolving subvariants, particularly of Ami lineage, are present and being monitored. Hey, so this might be a new one, a new endemic. But anyway, I'm gonna get this real quick, and now I'm gonna wrap it up. 2 Ezra 15:1. It says, "Behold, speak thou in the ears of my people, which are the Israelites, who so-called blacks, Hispanics, and Native Americans," and that's what we're doing. "The words of prophecy," which means to say before, "which I will put in thy mouth, saith the Lord, and cause them to be written in paper, for they are faithful and true. Fear not the imaginations against thee. Let not the incredulity of them trouble thee that speak against thee." And that's for us, the hopeful elect. Don't let these unbelievers shake you because they don't believe. All right, or because they're scared, or because they're doubting. To hell with them. Hey, if they're not of the elect, they're not going to get it. We have to have the inner peace of believing Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua, knowing he's on our side, knowing he revealed us to the secrets, and knowing that he delivered us. Lord willing, he delivers us, but knowing that he gave us the truth, basically, that's what I'm trying to say. Lord willing, he delivers us, but we have to have the inner peace of believing that, and having that inner peace. Nothing outside of us should be able to shake us, because the kingdom is within. So everything outside of that is like, that shouldn't shake you. Let no man take thy crown. It says, "Of them trouble thee that speak against thee, for all the unfaithful shall die in their unfaithfulness." Like that lady on that video on that oxygen tank. She's unfaithful. That's why she's dying in her unfaithfulness. I bet she's a Christian. Like I said, I wish I could play the video, but she probably said some stuff that would get the video taken down. But yeah, she started cursing out the white man. But I bet she loved, white man Jesus. I'm just assuming. I bet she loved him before she got that sickness. I mean, look at how unhealthy she was probably already unhealthy, eating McDonald's, And that's why our elders and apostles, Grand Millstone, they push health. They push health and wellness. And speaking to myself, first and foremost, we ought to take heed unto that. Take the herbs. All right. Be our own personal doctor. When something's wrong with our body, try our best to resolve it, naturally. All right. Because we're coming into these times again. I'm about to get it. All right. It says, "Behold, saith the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world, the sword, famine, death, and destruction." All these things are coming. But the point I want to get is plagues in this lesson. That's a plague, is it not? That lady looked like she was about to drop dead. If you hear her talking, it sounded like she was struggling to breathe. She was hyperventilating. In the video, she said her heart rate was like super high. I thought she was gonna, I thought she was gonna give up the ghost in the midst of the video. I'm gonna skip down to verse 11. "But I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm, and smite Egypt with plagues as before." All right, when you read Revelation 11:8, it tells you, their dead bodies shall lie in the street of the great city, which spiritually is called Sodom and Egypt. We're just talking about America. This isn't actual Egypt. Nothing is really going on over there in Egypt, in actual ancient Egypt right now. All right. But a lot is happening over here in Babylon the Great. It says, "Smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all the land thereof by nuclear missiles." And it means actually all the land. It doesn't just mean New York or 100% of Babylon the Great, which is America, will be destroyed. All right. But the point I wanted to get is, he will smite Egypt with plagues as before. That first pandemic, that was nothing. That was just a trial run. Now they're about to hit round 2. It says, "Egypt shall mourn, and the foundation of it shall be smitten with a plague There it goes again. And punishment that the Most High shall bring upon it. So I'm going to end off with getting that word plague. All right, this is the etymology of plague. And it says, late 14th century, plague, affliction. Hey, that lady in that video was afflicted. I'm using her as an example because she was basically patient zero of that new variant, you know. It says cause pain or harm, you know, disorder. That thing causes all kind of disorder in your body, you know. And that snake venom, you know what I'm talking about. The jump shot, all right, that causes all type of harm to the body as well. Because they want to scare you with this, you know, boogeyman, you know, C19. They want to scare you so you can take that, but that's really even worse. And from that the data that they collected from that first trial run, they already know who's gonna take the next one. They know who's gonna take the MOTB, which is the RFID micro CHIP. All right, which is the MOTB of Revelation 13, 16 through 17. Calamity. All right. Hey, Proverbs 1, he said, I also will laugh at your calamity. We're going to laugh at you people when it gets real bad. Because you people deserve to be laughed at. You proud-ass people, man. You know? You want to laugh at us when we're out there teaching the word. You want to, you know, cause, you know, trouble for us, vex us. You know? Like it says in Psalms, you know, reward evil to him that was at peace with you. We didn't do nothing to you people, but you people came up against us. You know? And it's not personal either. You're really coming up against Yahweh Shem Shah and his word. That's the main offense. You know? Forget us. All right? Forget little old us. You came up against, you know, Yahweh Shem Shah and his word, you know? Gotta kind of lower my voice, you know, fucking dogs barking and shit. This is an event causing great or often sudden damage or distress. So they're going to come out with some new thing, you know, a black swan event. It says evil, which means bad time, scourge, trouble, vexation. So all these things are coming, man. Ooh, this is what's coming too, a malignant disease, which the word disease means your body is not at ease. All right. So this is what's coming to you people, man. All you enemies of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua, this is what's coming to you. And Lord willing, were those men. Proverbs 1, we're going to laugh at you people. You know. So Lord willing, this lesson was edifying and comforting to the elect, because you should be comforted knowing your enemies, the enemies of Yahweh B'Shem Yahushua, the people, the unbelievers, all right? It's comforting knowing the judgment is coming to them. That should comfort you. And knowing that the Lord is with you and he revealed his secrets unto you. You think he's going to reveal his secrets to you and you're faithful to him and he's just going to forsake you? We have to have faith. Speaking to myself first and foremost. But Lord, in this lesson was edifying. Once again, giving our praise to Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahushua, Ba'ashem, Rachak, Wadash, the water. Salaki, Shalom.